Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I want to talk about the obvious thing that's happening more and more frequently, and there's a couple things that I want to talk about today. My dad and I were just watching a video about slavery. Actually, it was about slavery. They didn't specifically say it was about slavery, but the subject is still slavery. It's about how some old workers for DuPont were digging at an old DuPont property in the early 1900s and found a bunch of concrete pads, like 12 feet underground. And then they were told to just bury them back. So when you're working for somebody else, you don't have the power to say, no, we need to excavate this. We're going to keep going because you're working for somebody else. They have the power to tell you what to do because you're working for them. Not a good scenario, right? Ownership, that's why they say, attorneys say that possession is 9/10 of the law. The last thing we want to do is own one another. The only thing we really own is ourselves. So today in the news, we have this Samsung reaches 11th hour deal with union to avoid strike. Samsung, like any major company, they prioritize the investors, they prioritize the management circle, the upper management circle, to take all the profits. And everybody else that's working or slaving away for that business makes less. So obviously the workers, they see Samsung profits. I think the Samsung is it probably says in here, in the last minute reversal, Samsung Electronics Company reached a tentative deal with its labor union, averting a potentially crippling strike that had been scheduled to start Thursday at the world's largest memory chip maker. So it's saying that Samsung is the world's largest memory chip maker. I don't know if that's true or not. I think they are, and I think I can't remember all the names. There's 3 or 4 major memory chip makers, but Samsung's the biggest. Samsung's a huge company. I'm looking at a Samsung monitor right here. And I had to replace this monitor because the old monitor wasn't working correctly. It wasn't working as advertised. So I actually went through the steps to get this replaced through Samsung, and it was a pain in the ass. It took me forever to get this thing replaced. I sent the old one in. They sent it back. It didn't work. It actually worked not as good as the screen wouldn't even come on. So I had to send it back in, and they did replace it, but it took 2 months from the beginning of when I sent it off. I think I sent it off at the end of December, and I didn't get this monitor until sometime in March. So I was down. It's really hard to work if you don't have at least 2 monitors. If you're doing any kind of like I'm streaming right now, I've got a separate monitor that I can look at my stream here. I'm looking over at it right now, and the image that I'm looking at. But the bigger businesses they get more and more convoluted, and they get more inefficient because you've always got a smaller group controlling a larger group, and it gets more disconnected as it grows bigger. I'll keep reading the article here, and I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts in the comments. The South Korean company said in a statement late Wednesday that labor management have reached a tentative agreement on wages and collective bargaining agreement. The company's union also confirmed suspension of plans for a strike that had been planned. That's basically what they do. They try and give you as much as you can get to make you happy, to keep them from losing profits, because they lose profits when you stop working for them. Why would you work for somebody else to make them richer and you poor? And then just have them, drip feed you enough money to stay alive. And then the opposite, they say, well, okay, well, what else would I do? Am I going to die? Well, work for yourself. Take care of yourself. Partner with other people that want to treat you the same way. On another note, if I go to my LinkedIn, let me open this article here. So, CEO of Bolt defends layoffs. They just got rid of their whole HR team. Obviously, they're a traditional business model. That's the only reason you need an HR team, is if you have a traditional business model where you're hiring employees. And he said, standing firmly behind Bolt's financial recent workforce cuts, writing in LinkedIn posts that the company eliminated its HR team because it needed to happen. Breslow, who co-founded the fintech at Stanford in 2014, claimed at a Fortune event on Tuesday that the human resources staff is creating problems that didn't exist. What problems are those? This article really doesn't say what those problems were, so it's really hard to say whether or not those problems were valid or not valid. But the point is when you go to work for somebody, if you're an employee, then if there is an issue that you can't get through management because they're the ones making the decision, your only option is to go to HR. And if management decides that those problems aren't valid, what are you going to do? Are you going to... My personal experience is it's a waste of time to try and go through steps to take it all the way to L&I, because, you're just not being treated the same way that they're treating themselves. They're making all the decisions, and you're working for them. So, this is the whole point of my personal projects, is to decentralize decision making. If you're working inside of a group of people that's creating anything, you really have to surrender to the needs of the group. And at the same time, set firm boundaries. Because people do, and if you guys are watching this channel, you probably understand this. People bring up BS all the time, complain about things that just don't matter. We had a friend that was over last night, and he was talking about, some woman that was cussing everybody out on the workforce. And I told him, I said, I don't know why that would bother anybody. I don't care. Somebody could, that's their own problem. It's people act however they want to act. They're putting toxicity out into their environment. Our job, my job as a healer, as somebody who is self-aware, doesn't let that stuff bother them. Who cares? If somebody's upset about something, why would they? If they're trying to make me upset, that's what they're trying to do, right? They're trying to reflect that toxicity in their environment. So why would I respond to somebody that's trying to get me to react? And the best way to ground it out is to not react. Actually, don't even walk away. Just look at them, saying, "Are you having problems today? Are you okay?" Because you can really drive somebody crazy if they can't get a reaction out of you. And they'll destroy themselves. I've seen it happen all the time. I've seen it happen years and years and years and years. I was an electrician for 25 years. And you work with a lot of different people that are in a lot of different states. And if they bring their toxicity and try and throw it out on the people around them, if you react to it, it gives them reason to keep doing it. But if you don't react and you just say, "Are you okay?" Especially if they're trying to control your behavior. It'll become really obvious when they're trying to control your behavior what you should and shouldn't be doing. So the point of this message mainly is to get to the fact that don't choose to work for somebody else. Work for yourself. And then if you can partner with people with the right mindset that understand, not try to control somebody else, just to control themselves, and then tell them to do what they love to do, then you can treat each other equally. But it's hard to treat someone equally when somebody is just spouting toxicity all day long. This is a really simple issue. It's the reason I started this YouTube channel. I worked for years and watched how people destroyed themselves and got themselves hurt in different settings. And it manifests itself in a lot of different ways. It manifests itself in poor physical health. Manifests itself in poor relationships. And it's why we have employer-employee agreements in the first place. It's a type of slavery. Why are we working for somebody else? We should always be working for ourselves. And in the big picture, that's what we're seeing at a grand scale. We're going to start seeing more and more of these businesses start to kind of self-destruct on the inside, from the inside out, if they're not structured correctly. You have to know how to structure your relationships and make sure you're treating people the way that you would want to be treated. For one thing, if you were unaware of how you were treating somebody, you'd want somebody to let you know and say, "Hey, look, I'm fine. I don't know what problem you have, but I suggest you take some time to rest, take care of yourself, and I love you. You know, those simple words are so powerful. They don't get used enough, especially when they need to. It's really easy to say I love you when somebody's treating you good, but when somebody's treating you poorly and you say I love you anyway and don't react to whatever they're going through, that's a very powerful thing that you can do for one another, and it actually grounds things out, and that act is what brings people together in the first place. So just want to throw this out there for you guys. Love you guys. This is a pretty short video, but just watch what happens over the next. This is escalating, and there's less and less people that are willing to work together. They start working by themselves because they don't want to, you know, they don't trust anybody, because you come out of those old systems. It's like, you just do your thing and I'll do my thing. Well, when everybody's selling a service to one another and nobody's working together, then everything fractionalizes and nothing gets accomplished. We stop building houses together. We stop building, we stop building the things that we need for one another instead of building things that we don't need. Love you guys. Have a great day, and I'll catch you on the next one.